I made a cute little pillow. Here it is. To show you how to make a double-sided mitered flange with a striped fabric. So in each of the four corners, you can see that the stripes are coming together at the miter, and it's the same on the back. Each corner matches, and the stripes create this really cool pattern in the corner, making a really adorable pillow, front and back. So we put a pretty flower on the front just to decorate the front a little bit extra special. And then the back has a zipper, as a king sham or a queen sham might have. So we demonstrated how we would do the zipper. But mainly this pillow is just to demonstrate how to do this part, the mitered flange, double-sided. It's a lot to say. Double-sided mitered flange with a stripe fabric, and the stripes match in each corner. And we made this video so we could show you visually the step-by-step how-to, and also because Vision Magazine, Window Fashion Vision Magazine, wanted to put a tutorial in the summer issue showing this process step by step, and we have the 21 steps listed in the magazine with a photo to correspond to each step. So you could see it in the magazine written out, or you can watch the video, or both, to see how it's done in process and all the way through from start to finish. And this is on page 18 of Window Fashion Vision. Just got my copy in the mail, and I hope you enjoy it, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. I want to end up with a flange that measures 1.5 inches. So in order for that to happen, I need this part, once it's folded in half, to measure 2 inches, which gives me the 1.5 inch flange plus 1/2 inch seam allowance. So that means when I open it, I need a total of 4 inches. So by cutting this at 4 inches and then you fold it in half, then you have 2 inches with one side folded and the other side is the raw edges. That will give you your 1.5 inch flange. This part is the flange. And then down here you have 1/2 inch for seam allowance. So that's how you figure how big to make this part. And then also the first two corners that I already demonstrated, I basically was taking, a point of the fabric that is already folded over like this, and I was finding my miter by folding it over like this. And if you match up your stripes, then you can fold it back from this corner. And after you have this part lining up and this part lining up, if you fold the top layer back so that this corner is revealed, then what's left, and it helps if you have a gridded table like I do, and let me reposition this so that that point is on a line and this is on a line and this is on a line. So if I have this all lined up and then I open this and have this folded part lined up with this folded part, that will give me an automatic 45-degree corner that matches the pattern right there, because I started by having this stripe and this stripe lining up. So that's how I found where each one of these makes a really pretty mitered corner. If I wanted to have, let's do this a different way. If I wanted to have this stripe in the corner here rather than the solid part, I would just fold it up on that stripe and line these up over here, and again put a pin there, and then take the top layer and peel it back until this edge is equal to this edge. And you have to remove that pin because you have to totally expose that corner. And then you have a corner that looks different than this, but it is still a true 45-degree miter, and the stripes are lining up down here and a tiny bit right here. And then this solid part lines up. So that's how you find your miter, just carefully by doing origami with your fabric. And sometimes what happens is, if you're making this pillow to a specific size that does not follow the pattern of the stripes, you might end up needing to make your miter off pattern. And so let me show you what happens there. So I'm just randomly folding this, and my stripes are not folding on top of each other. So now when I fold this back, you can see that I don't have a pretty match with my stripes at the 45 degree. This is still a true 45 degree miter, but the stripes are not lining up. And this would drive me crazy. So I would really try a lot of different methods and maybe change the size of the flange or the size of the pillow until I can get all four corners to at least make a pretty match. Maybe they would be different in each corner, but at least they would match. But ideally they will match and they would be the same exact on each corner. So I wanted to clarify a little bit more about how big to cut this and then how you find the match in the corner using some basic origami folding methods. So here's the stripe that is just kind of like pinned into place into the miters with the 45 degree angle, and the stripes are matching up. And I don't have it obviously stitched yet in this frame. This is all framed out. I did, however, just sew this one out of the leftover piece that I cut, just to kind of test it and see how it was going to work and how it was going to look. So I've already done that, and I'll turn this inside out so you can see it. But once I knew that that was how it was going to look in the corners, then since this is just like a sample, I went ahead and framed out this flange in a manner that gets each corner to be the same exact stripe, with the little one here and then a solid one where the inside corners meet, so each one is the same. And if this was a pillow that was ordered from a designer with the specifications already predetermined, it might not work out that way where everything is just perfectly balanced. So I might have to either fudge the size or tell the designer it's not going to be perfectly the same in each corner. But for this project, and because I could make it whatever size I wanted to, I was able to just set each corner, and then I could measure what it ended up to be and then draw my little picture like this. And then I have my measurement from this corner to this corner of how big that the flange will be, and then that determines how big the inside of that flange is going to be, which helps me decide how big to cut the front of the pillow. That will be this part, this insert right here. And so that is what I have over here, and I cut it according to the size of the stripes going around it, with enough seam allowance on all sides so that once I sew this flange to this fabric, it's all gonna fit just right. And so I'm gonna go through the steps of actually sewing these miters on all four corners, and then once that part is done, then I can sew it to the front. And then after that, the next step is to sew the back, which I'm making pulling these over as we go. I'm making the back in two separate pieces so that the zipper can be kind of towards the bottom, but on the back somewhere in the middle, just not at the very bottom, not here at the bottom between the back and the flange. I'm floating it kind of in the middle, but towards the bottom of the back. So I also have that all drawn and diagrammed so that my cuts are already kind of predetermined. And then once I put this together and put the zipper in here, I might have to trim it down a little bit here or here, but I will explain that as I do that part too. So the next step is to sew these corners together. So I'm gonna first show you how I did this one, or how this one looks, and then I'll go through the steps of how to get these to look like this. Okay, so let's just start right here with this one since it's closest to the camera. And I've already got it pressed. You see this crease right here? That's because I pressed it with the iron. It's already set, and that tells me exactly where I need to sew it when I'm at the sewing machine. So what I can do now is I'm gonna open it up, and those pressed lines are important because they're gonna tell me where to sew. And this is kind of amazing. Somebody taught me this a long time ago. It's really cool. It works like magic. So you see I've opened it up, and now I'm gonna open up this piece, and then I'm gonna fold it right sides together along this edge right here. So once you do that, and then I'm gonna unpin this other one from the table, and then you can lay it flat. So everything is right sides together with this whole flange opened up, and I'm folding it right on the crease where it's been creased by the iron. And then I can see where the 45-degree angle is because the iron left the line that shows me. And so this is where I need to sew. And I can take a ruler and a pencil and kind of go over those lines to make sure I can still see them at the sewing machine. And then also what I did on my little sample, this one that I already did, is I measured on both sides, and here's where the crease ends right here. Measure from that point to the fold. That's 2 inches on that side, and on this side it's a little bit less than 2 inches, just because the direction of the fold and the crease is opposite each other. And so this one is taking up more than this one. So I want to sew these at the same spot. So since this one is 2 inches, and this happened on this one too, so that's how I know, I'm gonna remark this one at 2 inches instead of it was at 1 7/8. And so when I'm drawing my line, I'm gonna make sure that both ends are equal. And then I'm gonna put a pin right there at the tip right there. And then I can draw this line and make sure the ruler is up against both pins. And then I can draw that line. And then here is where I'm going to put my ruler at the 1/2 inch marker right here on the edge. And then I can put that little dash right there. So then I know to stop sewing right there and go all the way to that corner. So then I can do the same thing on this side, draw this line, and then mark it off at the 1/2 inch. So now I'm ready to sew. I'm gonna maybe put one pin on each end to hold it together. And then I can go to the sewing machine and sew from this dash to the point here, and then same on this side, and I'll back stitch at each end. Then I can come back over here and cut this off, and then press it and turn it around, and then it's gonna look like this. So let's go do that, and I'm just gonna do one at a time, and then keep continuing to go all the way around just to make sure each one looks good before I move on to the next one, in case I need to make any adjustments. Okay, so I'm here at the sewing machine, and I hope you can see the little dash from the pencil. I'm gonna start there and head this way and then this way. So I'm gonna put the needle down right at that little dash mark, and then start sewing, and then back stitch, hopefully not further than that little dash of the pencil. And then back stitch at this corner right here, and then try to get the needle down right at the tip of the arrow. It's basically an arrow. And then pivot to the other side, and then only sew up to this dash over here. This time you can see where you're back stitching, so it's a little bit easier than the other side. Okay, so then I can cut this off, but if you want to check first, you can maybe poke it around and see that your stripes are nice and matching, and they look pretty good at first glance. So this helps just remove the bulk so you can get it turned around. So I'm gonna cut off, maybe leaving 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I'm gonna also clip that fold right there, and then over here the same, and then clip this part, and then I can turn it around. Sometimes I will go to the table and press this seam allowance open on both sides, and I still can do that, but I want to get it turned around and show you before I move over there. And I'll poke out the tip with this dull pair of scissors carefully. Be careful not to poke through your fabric, because it will, if your scissors are pokey, it will push all the way through. Okay, so now you just, flatten it back into the flange, and you can see how nice it looks on both sides, and that you're open right here for your seam allowance. So that looks really nice, and I think I definitely need to go and press these open. You can try to do that from, the right side out, but it's easier if you turn it back around and then on each side, one at a time, press those flat. You could even, like, I'm kind of getting them opened gently with just my fingers, and then if you get the bottom one open and then lay it down and then open this one, then you can probably press them both at the same time. Careful not to put any weird creases on the outsides, but that won't take much steam to get that set. So let's go do that and see how it looks. Okay, so I'm gonna try to do what I said over there, the machine, and get the back seam opened up and lay it flat on the table, and then try to get the top one open, and then I'll just apply a little bit of steam, and that transferred to the back pretty good, but I can just flip it over and just give that one more douse of steam. That way now when I turn it right side out, it's gonna lay a lot flatter. And I'm gonna carefully attempt to poke it out with my really sharp scissor, playing with fire here. And then you can also kind of like make sure that each seam allowance on the inside is flat, and then press it again from the right side like it is right here, and make sure that everything lays nice and flat. So now we still have our inside raw edges lined up, and we have a nice flat seam on both sides, and the stripes are matching up. This one has an extra like thick thread right here, so kind of threw it off right there. It's not 100% perfect right there, but we'll just make this part the better part. We'll make this side the front. And it is a sample, so I'm not going to go over and fix this. For a client, I would, but not for this sample. We'll make sure that this is the front. That means all the other ones have to be perfect on this side, so we'll see if we can make that happen. So now that I have that one ready to go, I can move on to the next one. So same thing, I just pinned it in place for the time being, but now I can open it back up and turn it around, fold it in half right here. That's following that crease right there. And then lay it flat, get all the raw edges lined up like this on both sides. And it's really helpful to make sure that if you are working with a stripe, that this stripe is right on top of the one below it. I'll pin that right there. And then same over here. See how these are not lined up right now? It's really important to make sure that they are lining up. And that might be the thing that I did not do on the previous corner. And that's why the one side is not as perfect as the other side. So whenever you're dealing with stripes, check that they're lined up top to bottom before you draw this line right here. So I have it pinned in place so it won't move. And then again, I'm gonna make sure that I draw my line 2 inches in. So from here down 2 inches, and then put a pin up here, and then over on this side, 2 inches. So same thing happened. This line is already at 2, and this one was shy of 2. So now I have them marked at the same place, and I can draw this line on each side, and then I can draw that little 1/2 inch dash on each side. And I'm gonna put 2 pins on each side this time to make sure that those stripes stay together. So let's see if this one turns out even better than the first one. I wonder if my first attempt was better and if I got lucky or not. Yeah, that one's better. I think I just got lucky on that one. Okay, so let's go do this one. Yay, both sides look good. You can tell right away. This side looks amazing. So that was the trick on getting these stripes to line up, was just making sure that they were lined up side to side before we drew our lines with pencil on the inside. So now we know, and we still are looking good on this bottom one, the one I did first. So let's see how we look here. So that's half of the flange complete. Now we can do the other two corners, and they're just kind of laying here ready for that same process. So I'm gonna do both of these, and then we can talk about whether or not we want to serge this inside part, because I like to have all my raw edges serged on a pillow. So if I can carefully line these up, I should be able to take it to the serger and serge that before I connect the pink part. Okay, so here we are. We have all 4 mitered corners stitched together. They all look great. They all have that little bit of a 1/2 inch seam allowance space open at each corner, and the whole inside is serged. So we got rid of all of those loose threads. So now we can take the front of our pillow and pin the flange into place. And remember, we want the front of this to be the side that has all the perfect corners. One of these was a little bit, there it is. This one was a little bit off. So that's going to be the back. So we're going to put the right sides together and start pinning this flange to the pillow. So that's our next step. Okay, so here's the one corner that is not perfect. So this is the back. That means this is the front. So I need the front side to be face down, right sides together to the pillow. So this is the pillow front right here. And I'm going to start by pinning right at the corner right here with the right sides together. And then I'm going to try to pin the whole thing together at the table and just stick the pins into the tabletop to get it all like laid out and into place. And then I can show you a little bit closer what that looks like. I'm just getting each corner set for the first step. So here is what we are seeing. So there's that gap in the corner. That allows us to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance in each corner. And then I can position the rest of the edges to all line up. So the striped fabric lines up with the pink fabric underneath on all 4 sides. And then I'm going to pin it together, go to the sewing machine, which by the way is right over there. And then I'll sew all 4 sides. Then the last couple steps, I still have to put my back piece together with the zipper. And then once that's together and this is stitched together, I'll just flip this back over and sew that around all 4 sides. Turn it right side out, open the zipper, and it'll be done. So let's continue with this step. I have to pin it all the way around, and then I can take it off the table and head to the sewing machine. So I'm sewing this flange on with my normal foot on the machine, and it's having trouble going around the corner because it's really thick right here. So I'm going to change to the Welt foot, because then the foot will go around this corner and around all of this fabric a lot easier. Okay, so here's my Welt foot, which is also my zipper foot, and that already feels so much better. I can get right in there and backstitch. And then I can leave the needle down and pivot the fabric to get around the corner. And then I'm going to push this mitered corner out of the way. Take out that pin. And I am going to pull on the pink fabric, the bottom layer, as I sew. So I'm going underneath the flange to hold onto the pink layer and to tug on it a little bit, and then taut sew with my other hand in the back. There, the needle is down and I can pivot just like that. Let's see how it looks. Very nice. First step of this zipper is just to close up the ends or to attach the small piece to the big piece, and just sew an 1.5 or 2 inches on each end with 3/4 inch seam allowance. And then this is where the zipper goes. So now I'm gonna turn it to the back and then open up that little seam I just made, and that's gonna be where I start sewing the zipper. So it's just stitched onto one side for now, and now I'm gonna do the other side. This is the back, that's how that looks. And then this is the front of the back piece. And so you can see the zipper in there, and on each end, it's trapped inside that seam allowance that I just made on each end. And now I want to sew the little overlap to hide the teeth. And so I'm just gonna open it up only until that part, and then I can flip it over and sew from the zipper side, because I can still see how much overlap I'm gonna get, but I can keep the fabric from pushing by sewing on the zipper side. Here's how it looks so far. I just have the top side stitched with the overlap. You see that? And now I'm going to do the other side. There, now we have both sides of the zipper stitched with the fabric overlapping the teeth. So that's finished, and now I have to check the size of this back piece to see if it's going to be the same size as the front side where the flower is. So I'm going to measure this way and this way, and if I have to cut it down at all, I will go do that at the serger. And then I can connect it to the pillow, and then it'll be done. I went ahead and pinned these corners down to the face so that they stay out of my way, because they're really bulky and they stick up, and now it's going to be a lot easier to connect the front and the back. And I could pin the back to the front like this, but what I'd rather do is pin from this side, so have the front on top of the back. That way the part that's already been kind of stitched all the way around is slightly smaller, because it's been taken up by all of that stitching. And so if I have that part on top, I can get that part to cooperate and push if necessary to meet the corners of the bottom piece. If I did it the other way, this piece is slightly bigger, this one will push and be longer at the end. So I'm going to pin from this direction, and then it will fit better and it will meet at all the corners. So I'm going to start at the corners like that, and then pivot and keep turning each corner until they're all pinned into place, and then you can fill in the straight parts. And And if you pin one corner down to the table like that, then you can kind of pull on it and work out any extra as you're pinning. One more side and then I can go to the machine. Okay, I have my pillow finished, front and back with the zipper, and this is just a little sample that I'm making for a tutorial. So I tried to see what it would look like just stuffing it with this little poof of batting, and I didn't like it, so I had to cut down a cute little down insert. This one was already kind of sacrificed for some other pillows that we needed the feathers for. This is what the feathers look like over here. So since this one was already kind of cut into, I just cut it down even more this way. Took out some more feathers. This whole bag right here. Isn't that amazing? That's what came out of this pillow that already had feathers missing. But anyway, then I just sewed it right at the bottom and serged the edge. And so now I can stuff it in my little pillow, and it's gonna look a lot plumper and more custom with a down insert. And then this pillow is finished. And you can see how pretty even the back looks with all the miters matching just like they do on the front. We only had that one. Where is it? This one that's not exactly perfect, but that one's not even too bad. That's how that zipper works. And then you just tuck in the slide at the end. Now it's kind of, squishy and plump like a custom pillow should be. And then that's how it looks. Each miter is beautiful. And you have that pretty flower in the middle. Ta-da! Okay. Finished with this pillow. Now it's time to clean up all these feathers because they're making me sneeze and they get all over the place. So I'm gonna end the video and thank you for watching how we make the mitered flange, where all of the corners match front to back and the stripes are the same on each corner. And there's a zipper in the back, and we even did a little applique with the flower. So hopefully you learned about how to make your mitered corners for flanges. And side note, just because this pillow is so little, I wish I would have made this maybe a half an inch to a whole inch shorter, so it would have been just a little stubby little flange, but it's just a sample, so it's okay. All right, so cleanup time. All this feather has to go.